just real quick. Um, because the rules of engagement have changed in leadership, we're seeing a divide. We're seeing a separation. We are seeing some people that are growing and flourishing and feeling mostly good. And then we're seeing people that are back here and they're looking around and they're like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on. Nothing's working. The things I've done for a very long time are not sticking like they used to stick. And if you're feeling that way, maybe not even 100% across the board, but in some aspects of your professional life, you probably have not kept up with some of the rules that have changed in leadership in the last couple of years. There has been a pretty big shift in what is working professionally and what is not working anymore. I will never forget, I got hired to do one of the largest speaking engagements I had ever done. It was a global virtual training. And the person who brought me in said, I don't want to hire you. This is so great. I've never told this story before. I don't want to hire you. I was coming to talk about burnout in leadership, and I was working with the leadership team first to go over their pain points and challenges and get their perspective. And then I actually surveyed all the staff and was able to get their perspective. And I could work with the leadership team and all the staff to go over what strategies and what viewpoints we needed to take to try to reduce burnout. And to be really fair, I'm not going to tell you what industry this was in, just to protect that conversation and the confidentiality there. But this industry is known for just burning out. They are always exhausted, and there's a lot of industries that are like that, but this is one of them. And the woman who hired me, who paid me, who brought me on, said, I don't want to hire you. And she said, but I have people in this office that want to take PTO. They want to take days off. They believe in their mental health. And I've got to do something, right? I've got to do something. And there was a generational divide in this organization from people who grew up with different mindsets around what work ethic looked like in application. And we're seeing a shift in professionals where it does matter. It is important. They are valuing work-life balance, which I don't think exists, by the way, but we just, use that term in society. They value work-life balance. They value their mental health. They invest in self-care. They go on retreats and they do their skincare. And there's also people like me who are kind of in the middle of those two generations. Like we a little bit have that like just suck it up buttercup mindset, but we also are like, you know what? I deserve the vacation and I don't have to kill myself to earn it, right? Like there's some of us that are in the middle of that divide. And in that shift, these people that are entering the workforce, they have a lower threshold for killing themselves for the sake of a job, right? They're just not going to burn the candle at both ends and say, but one day I'll get that promotion. One day I'll earn myself that raise. Because the corporate world changed itself. It's no longer offering pensions and giving people multiple weeks off in a year and telling them that they care about them and they're invested in their growth and they're paying for their degrees and they're sending their families on vacations. Those things don't happen anymore. And people had to own that responsibility for themselves. They had to say, okay, you're not going to do it for me. I no longer expect that in a job and in a workplace, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't get to exist for me. So, how do I need to show up to create this? And so, the leaders that are still trying to lead from this perspective of work ethic looks like overworking, overcommitting, and overwhelming are no longer going to be effective in the professional world anymore. It's just not going to work. 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, it's not going to work. And um, burnout in the traditional sense is not what we're seeing anymore in workplaces, right? There's something underneath a lot of that exhaustion that I see in leaders right now. And it's not even the workload per se, because we can work a lot, but when it brings us joy, it doesn't feel like work, and that's okay, right? Like I'll stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning working, but I wake up refreshed and happy and excited to go back to work because I chose to stay up and do something that filled my cup, right? And so really quietly over the years, effective leadership roles have changed. And if you are operating out of an old playbook, it's just not going to have an impact anymore. And what's funny is, just going to, here's one of our little truth bombs that we're going to drop today. If you are feeling frustrated by your team and you're still playing out of the old playbook, you're probably not even blaming yourself. You probably haven't even taken the time to say, maybe I'm the problem as a leader. Maybe the rules have changed and I need to keep up. That will shift everything. If you can do that part, I don't even care if you hear what the new rules are. If you can just do that, you take yourself one step closer to being a more effective leader. We have to be honest with ourselves and we have to own when we are the problem, but it takes us being able to admit that and self-reflect in that moment. We've talked about that before, right? So if you are a leader who is always trying to project certainty, stay composed, have the answers, don't show that you need anything, keep your personal life personal, lead from authority, figure it out alone at the top, those are kind of the hallmarks of the old blueprint that we use, the old playbook. Now, I'm not saying that some of those things still aren't important. We need to have some composure and some professionalism and your entire personal life does not need to be dumped in your business, obviously. But we are allowing for the humanity to show up in the workplace now, right? For a long time, that playbook worked, but the jobs changed, the market changed, the corporate world changed, and the playbook changed along with it. So if you didn't pick it up because you were still trying to hold way too tight onto the old one, I'm going to give you some of the things that are in the new playbook that I think will make the biggest impact on you. I'm going to share three today. The first one is that psychological safety has become something that has moved to the top of the list for people on our teams. We are using this, and the research is there, it's undeniable that teams that have psychological safety outperform teams that don't. And we used to have this like separation of church and state where a leader was like, that is not my problem. Go see a therapist, take a pill, whatever it is you need to do, figure it out. I'm not touching that. Sure, people still need to be responsible for their mental health. That's not your job. But you do have the role and the responsibility of creating psychological safety on your team, right? This is true across industries. This was not showing up in just the high stress, high burnout, like typical roles. This is across industries. And that psychological safety does start with you. You are the leader in so many ways, and this is one of them. You might not want to hear this, and that's okay. You can choose to play by the old playbook, but you're not going to get the same results, and your team is going to suffer because of it, and you'll probably get replaced in your field. Just truth bombs. Sorry, I don't know why I'm being so sassy this week, but we're here and I'm here for it. So your team's willingness to show up and take risks, responsible risks, to speak up and to innovate are directly tied to their psychological safety on your team. So the old kind of like strong and silent leader undermines creating that psychological safety. So that's number one. Number two, disruption and uncertainty have become a baseline in corporate worlds and business ownership. We are no longer experiencing job markets where we are like stable for a decade and then something new comes along and we're like, oh, we all got to make a shift. How are we going to navigate this? And then we spend a year and a half like coming up with a plan and identifying how we're going to make this change and then implementing it over the next 6 months. And then we have 10 years of stability. Uncertainty has become the baseline. Like, this is our normal operation. This is our modus operandi. Like, this is what we're doing all the time between navigating COVID, right? How many restaurants did we see that closed because they weren't willing to say, let's just do the online orders? We've never used Uber Eats before and DoorDash and Grubhub, but we got to figure it out if we want to keep the bills paid. And they were like, I guess it's just a pandemic, but we're going to do this and this is how we're going to operate. And we saw door after door after door close. And so many of them did not reopen. One of my favorite little Mexican restaurant places to go to where they had an entire bar of sauces It was the coolest thing in these little cups, and you could just fill up and eat like 15 different sauces on your Mexican food. It was so expensive from like takeout Mexican, but it was so good and so worth it. And they closed their doors and they have not reopened. And it was so sad. It was just so sad. But between AI restructuring, economic pressures, political pressures, shifting team dynamics, new generations coming in behind us, navigating global pandemics, stock market issues, I mean, we could say for 30 minutes the uncertainties that we have navigated in the last 5 years. And any normal human would be like, I'm just proud I got up and put on pants today, right? So, you creating psychological safety on your team and knowing that uncertainty is the baseline with which you lead from, chef's kiss on those two things. If you can blend those together and operate from that space yourself as a leader and get the support that you need to do that, you're going to be fine. So leaders that understand and value and recognize and prioritize leading from a place of constant uncertainty, like the only thing that is constant is that things change, right? Um, you are going to be performing with certainty. You can be the steadiness and the certainty in that uncertain time when they know that they can depend on you to lead from a place where they know where to go, they know what to do. They might not have the answers, and know that you might not have the answers, but they also know that they can talk to you about it. They can come to you and they can say, "This is what's going on right now, and I am confused, and maybe you don't know what to do, but can we sit and collaborate about this?" And that you're not going to look down on them as a leader, being like, "Ah, they should have figured it out on their own." That's not going to fly anymore. It hasn't flown for a while. And if you're feeling behind, that may be one of the reasons why, right? So leaders who are thriving are the ones who are comfortable saying, I don't know just yet, but I'm going to collaborate with you and we're going to figure it out. And the third thing is us being isolated at the top stopped being acceptable. Yes. I think the higher you go, the lonelier you get will never not be true. I think that will always be true. I just think that is part of being a leader. You cannot show up for your team the way you showed up as a peer, right? I formally went into 2 layers of promotions at a corporate position where I went from peer to above and then to another layer above. And I couldn't interact with my peers in the same way. It does get lonelier. That does happen. But we have to strategize ways to support ourselves in that loneliness stage, right? And that just, it requires intention. It requires you making that decision. It's not a passive thing that's going to happen. At least now we know that it's a handicap if we don't address it. It's something worth putting your time, your money, your energy, and your efforts into, because when you get that support as you get lonelier moving up to the top, it's going to allow you to maintain that system and structure, maintain that space that can support you through those growth changes. And then you end up showing up as a better leader, right? Because you had a place to vent or you had a place to brainstorm, right? Because you're going to have to brainstorm for your team, but like who's helping you with that, right? You had a place to be creative. You had a place to get it all out and not be judged for it. You have to be very selective in those rooms that to be very selective. But with intention, you can find that and you can create that, right? And that may be through a coach like me or a group like the Nest that I run. It may be a cohort of leaders across different industries that have just decided to come together and be partners with one another, right? Because they know their industries are not the same. It creates some safety, right? There's one of my clients hates it when I say this, but like there's a dozen ways to skin a cat, but we have to get it done and figure it out, right? Okay, so we have changed the rules of engagement in leadership. 3 things that you need to make sure that you're doing that are in the new rule book, and maybe you haven't adopted them yet. Psychological safety for your team, leading from a place of knowing that uncertainty is the baseline, and giving yourself a support system because isolation at the top is no longer going to be effective in leadership. All right. I am so excited to jump on with you guys today. What is today? Wednesday? Yes. Okay. I'm so 2 more days of dropping truth bombs, and I cannot wait to wrap up this week with you guys, not only with our lives now, but also the nest closes on Friday. And I hope that you say yes to yourself, that you prioritize yourself, and I hope you start playing from the new playbook where you know that isolation at the top is going to hold you back and not let you grow. There are places that you can do this. The nest is one of them. There are others as well. If you'd like to talk about the nest and see if it's the right place for you to not be isolated at the top, I would love to talk to you. Info@amycapello.com or go to amycapello.com/nest and check it out. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.